position where I can contact that other property owner, or we need staff to do it, or should?
Don't vacate it, they both can still use it, and, you know, no harm, no foul is what I see.
It's a weird piece of easement because it is a road and it does go around and it contacts two properties. But on the funeral home side of it, he has a big piece of property that they use for overflow for parking, and with that road in between it, those two pieces, the structure does not attach to the land. So does that make any sense?
No, it makes sense. I've looked at it on the property appraiser's website. My concern is still the same. It cuts off egress and ingress to a second property, and unless those people are on the same page,
Right.
I feel like that's not a decision I'm prepared to make to vacate a right-of-way.
Okay.
So I don't know how you want to go about it, if you want to discuss it with staff and come up with a way to,
Thank you.
Well, in the property, the additional piece of property does have ingress and egress from the front, from the actual frontage where the property is addressed on. So this is just an additional access point to their property.
right. However, I don't know what is more valuable to the other property owner, whether it's that access or whether it's the land value in being deeded over to him. And I certainly wouldn't want to speak on his behalf.
I'll get with the city
Okay.
manager. We'll
All right.
discuss it.
Counselor, do we know if the city ever accepted dedication of that property? It appears on the plat, but that doesn't necessarily mean the city accepted dedication. Probably be hard to determine that, wouldn't it?
Right, the property appraiser considers it our road, and with that plat, we approved the plat at some point in history, so.
So the city's acquiesced in
It's ours. I
treating it as a
mean,
public road?
the other thing that I think you as a council have to consider is, once it's owned, say it's vacated, once it's owned by the respective property owners, just remember, they can completely close that off. So I don't know if anybody else in the public ever uses it.
Okay. So we'll come back at this next month? Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Okay. We'll move on to committee reports. Budget and finance, we have nothing.
We'll be setting a date for probably mid-July for budget and finance, as well as the CIP workshop.
Mayor, if we can, for that month, if we can do it on a Friday sometime that's convenient for you.
Yeah,
Because the rest of the days during the week, I'm pretty much tied up.
yeah. Friday afternoons are open for me.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Anything from growth management, Mr. Hart?
No, not at this time, thank you.
And I don't see Mr. Kirkland here.
He's ill.
Oh, it's the substitute, Mr. Kirkland.
Substitute it is.
All right. Welcome, Mr. Cornegay.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Pleasure to be here with you. As you can see, I am not David Kirkland, but I will try and fill his shoes as he does a wonderful job every month with the airport update. We'll start out by telling you that Earthworks completed Phase 2 of the apron rehabilitation project, consisting of the removal of easy base and existing asphalt from the apron area. Asphalt was laid about 3 weeks ago. We have moved into Phase 3, which is removal of concrete in 2 additional hangars. Concrete will be laid in approximately 2 weeks and complete by the end of June. Our DEO grant project team met on April 8th to discuss updates and progress of the environmental assessment, as well as other potential funding ideas to cover the additional entrance into the airport and other infrastructure items. The EA is still being reviewed by the FAA, and we're awaiting their comments. We anticipate a reply sometime late summer, early fall. Maria continues to schedule monthly meetings with the Bradford and Clay County EOC and Sheriff's offices to create safe plans for the traffic and security for the upcoming events scheduled at the firm in November and December. 2 more meetings scheduled with the Nitro planning team and the Clay County Tourism this month. Tickets for the Nitro event are scheduled to go on sale in the beginning of July. MHD Rockland's second class of pilot students have arrived and will begin flying the end of next week. They will be with us through September. We hosted a military unit from South Florida the week of May 10th. Camp Blanding's 111th is coming on June 18th for qualification jumps. Military training is beginning to get scheduled for the next 2 months as well. The College of Missionary Aviation has scheduled the air camp for the week of June 20th. They're expecting over 25 students to attend. June 26th, we're hosting an aerobatic fun day for pilots who have not been able to compete this past year due to COVID. They are anticipating over 25 aircraft and over 50
Oh, wow.
people.
That's great.
If you see an abundance of stunt planes that day, you'll know where they're hanging out. Our July board meeting has been moved to July the 12th due to the July 4th holiday. On a sad note for the airport staff, Lonnie Florence, who has been our fiscal clerk for almost 7 years, is retiring on June 30th. She and her husband are setting off towards the west in their Class C camper to spend more time with kids and grandchildren. Lonnie has been such a valuable asset to our airport team by getting our physical side of the business in line and ready for future growth. We greatly appreciate her contribution and dedication throughout the years. She will be missed terribly. And that's it. For as the propeller turns, I'll be happy to try and answer any additional questions you may have.
How's David feeling? I know he's sick.
Yeah, he's just a little under the weather. He'll be fine in a day or two. He's pretty resilient.
Seeing none, thank you so much for bringing that to us tonight. All right, Ms. Rakowski, Planning and Zoning. Anything?
I have nothing new to report. I've been having conversations with both developments. They're moving along accordingly. And so they suspect that either July or August that they'll be back in front of council.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hart, anything for Heritage Commission?
Nothing new.
All right. And so we move on to new business. Item A is the city engineer tabulation. I'm going to go ahead and ask Ms. Rakowski to start us out and kind of tell the pregame story.
Yes, so we did go out for requests for qualifications. We received 2 responses, both DMRP and Michael Baker International did respond. You in a separate email have received their packets. On the dais is the updated average from our evaluation team. The evaluation team consisted of myself, Mr. Bill Prang from AECom, who's the airport engineer, and Mr. Richard Smith, who's the county engineer for Clay County. There was one discrepancy in what was in your packet versus what's on the dais, is that there was one, the last category was left off and was not tabulated. With that being said, we do have representation from both firms if there are any additional questions that council may have.
And we'll go there. So, welcome to both of you. Mr. Bowles, nice to have you back. We'll start at my left end.
I really don't have anything. I know what one of them has done for the city, but I also know that we worked with this other company back when we did the sewer system back in the early 2000s.
I saw that project on their list, yeah. And the tabulations were really pretty close, I
Yeah.
thought.
The only thing, and I don't know if this is, I have a question to council. I don't know if this is the time to ask that question or.
Give it a shot.
Can you hear me now? Okay, sorry about that. The qualifications are awesome on both these, but the one concern I do have, and would have it if it was in any situation when we're doing a RFP, we have one candidate or one organization or company that has a member of a city authority that sits on that, and that would be our main contact person for if we were to go with this company. Is that a conflict of any sign? I mean, I want to get it out in the open first and make sure before we vote on anything.
So as an independent special district, it's not an automatic conflict. It would depend on the role of the individual as projects go forward. Ultimately, at least what I've observed with council is those projects are always approved by council. It's not delegated where the contractor would have the authority to engage or essentially engage in what's considered self-dealing. So to answer your question, it's not automatically a conflict, no.
Okay.
Could I expand on that just a bit? I did a bit of research on it, and council, correct me if I misstate something, but Referring to our charter, the airport authority is created in Article 1 as a separate governing body. That is followed up with an ordinance, Section 9-30, adopting the agency as a division, which I read as an agency. My view is that I don't see a conflict. You'd have to take a look at Section 112.313 sub 3, which basically prohibits doing business with one's agency. But if we have separate agencies, I don't see a problem with a conflict of interest or an ethics problem. That's my view.
Okay. Mr. Brown?
I read over this at length. I think both firms are, you know, right on. They both got the qualifications. They've done some awesome projects. I don't know that this would be possible, but I'd kind of like to see both of them voted on to turn in bids for the different projects. It might create a little bit of competition where maybe the city could benefit maybe from a little bit lower price and, you know, just dealing with one firm, and this is our cost. But they're both firms are right on, I think.
Ms. Kelly, any thoughts?
No, I agree with what Bobby said.
I think both entities are highly qualified. I agree with the statements up to this point. I would like to focus just a little bit on experience, though, in a certain area that's sort of dear to my heart, and was something that I campaigned on, to be a splash park in the city. And I know we've kind of kicked this around. We have nothing formal on the table. But I'd be curious as to what experience each entity has had in planning and engineering a splash park or a water park.
Mr. Richard, since you're on the front row, thank you for sitting on the front row. I like people who are not afraid to sit on the front row. Do you have a response to Mr. Hart's question?
So we have one in design in the city of Tavares right now. We're working on, it's very similar to our wooden park here downtown. It's called Wooden Wonderland. And in conjunction with that, there's a splash park next to it. So that's going to be part of our overall design. Our firm has completed, I want to say 4. I haven't thought about that in my mind, but I quickly ran through it. But we currently have one in design for the city of Tavares. And to the best of my knowledge, we have 4 projects within the last decade.
And you have Lake Butler as a client. Did you have anything to do with the Lake Butler splash park? That's quite a facility.
To the best of my knowledge, no. I think we've done some survey work out there, but I don't think we were part of the design for the Lake Butler splash park.
Okay, thank
But
you.
I don't know all of the projects that we've
I'm
done.
sure you don't.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions while Mr. Richard is up here? We got his attention. Okay. Mr. Bowles. Question of splash parks.
Yes, splash parks. I'll be totally transparent, as I've always been. I know in our office, we don't have a backlog of splash parks that we have done in our office. As a corporation, we have done splash parks around the country, but I can't give you specifics because I just wasn't prepared for a splash parks question, but I'm sure I could find out the information and kind of get corporately what we have readily available.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
And I will just say, I was going to get staff input from this, and I'm sorry I haven't been able to ask you a lot of questions lately. Not that I don't have them, but I just haven't been able to ask them. How do you want to operate? Because from my perspective, it's really nice to have a go-to engineer. You know, you can call them up, like we can, Mr. Commando. Sorry, Mr. Commando, but we do have your cell phone number. You know, you can just call them up and you can ask the question of a project or an issue. If you go to a bidding kind of setting, then you have to do the bid before you can decide who you can call on the project. So there's going to be a delay in how we handle those types of business, those types of projects. Having one on contract certainly makes a lot of sense. So where are you in this whole thing?
So will reiterate exactly what you just said. It does make sense for both hands. It makes sense to have one engineer as a go-to engineer who understands the city, has been involved with the planning. On the other hand, there is a different level of expertise and a different skill set by both. So it would be beneficial to the city to go out to bid or to ask for quotes from each engineering firm. However, it is very, very nice to be able just to pick up the phone, just like we do with Mr. Commando. Again, apologize. But we do on a regular basis, and to understand the ins and outs of the city and how each project has developed into the city, and then plus our general engineering contract and just our planning as a whole.
Okay. Mr. Brown, Tony, how do you feel about that issue?
I have thought about this all afternoon, and it's, as long as I've been on here, we've only had one engineer firm. But my understanding is a lot of the municipalities go with a couple different engineer firms that you do give them a project and see who's going to come in, you know, low bid or anything. But then I beat around about, you know, picking up the phone and being able to, you know, if you got a project going on, you got somebody to talk to. I mean, I'm kind of torn between staying the way, you know, with one engineer and trying, if there's any way possible, and I know these guys probably don't want to do it this way, but if we just kind of test the waters maybe for a few months and see, you know, work doing the one way with having two engineer firms, and we give them put out some projects. I don't know if council would entertain anything like that and see how it works. And if it doesn't work, then we come back and we pick a one engineer firm. I mean, it's not something that I've been doing this for a while, and we've never done it this way. But I would be interested to try it and just see if it saves us money doing it this way.
Let me go down to the other end. Mr. Hart.
Regarding the money, DRMP had a very detailed Exhibit A of their hourly rates, and I know that there was a breakout, but in the other one, but in comparing apples and oranges, Mr. Kowski, what's your impression as far as which engineering firm would be less cost to the taxpayers? Or do you have an opinion?
As far as
In other words, is one going to be dramatically less expensive than the other, or are they both basically the same?
So I'll be perfectly honest with you. I took both rate sheets to try to compare on what some of our hourly contracts have, and it's not apples to apples. So I don't know, without being able to go and back and sit down one-on-one with each engineering firm to give examples. I'm not entirely sure. Being able to match up what I think is an apple here to an apple over here, it looks like DMRP might come out a little bit more cost effective, but I can't say that for certain. I will tell you that one of the things outside of myself that was stated within the conversation when we talked about evaluations was the abundance of grant writing experience that DMRP had, that they outlined within their bid package, and then also the local engineering experience that Michael Baker International holds of being our engineer on contract for several years prior.
Second question, you mentioned Mr. Commando, and I think the arrangement we have with Mr. Commando and his law firm is a retainer agreement where routine matters are covered by a flat fee that's paid monthly, with extraordinary services being paid extra. Would it be possible, well, anything's possible, would it be practical to negotiate a contract with either one of these entities on a retainer basis and then cover extraordinary services in the contract? Now that's a rhetorical question at this point, but I'm just throwing it out as an idea.
Mr. Commando, have you seen anything like that, a setup like that with engineering services and other municipalities?
Almost all the local governments I work with have non-exclusive agreements, so there's nothing that would preclude them from hiring more than one. As to having both on retainer, I think you'd have to ask them if they're willing to do that.
Might be a subject of discussion though with them.
So how does
Not
council?
necessarily now, but,
I can't answer that for you. That would be a conversation for each individual firm, I don't know.
right, don't have the authority to commit to their entities, I realize that.
So I think where we are now is we have two pathways really right now, not discounting the pathway you suggested, Mr. Hart, but I feel like for this purpose, we have two pathways. We can choose to use both and contract out or bid out per project, or we can select one and go with one. And so, anyone want to make a motion?
I think we have to rely on the evaluation criteria, and even though the results are relatively close, it looks like DRMP gets the nod, not by much. And if we're going to rely on the hard numbers, the logical approach would be to go with DMRP. I'm not precluding the idea of working with both. I think that's possible, but I would be in favor of entering into negotiations now with DRMP. That's not a motion, that's just my observation.
Okay. I tend to go with the evaluation of the professionals as well. I like that an engineer was included in the evaluation. I like that the county engineer was included in the evaluation. I also would be open to bidding projects out as they come up. I could be supportive of either way, but I would feel safer for the residents to have a engineer on board.
Can I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
This question was brought up about grant writing. And Mr. Richard, can you elaborate a little bit on what kind of grants you guys have gone after for municipalities?
Certainly. Do you want a detailed list, or you just want some
give me
information?
just some information, like.
Okay, certainly. So of the 6 municipal contracts that I manage, I was able to secure roughly $3.2 million in the last 3 years. That's just information, that's a fact.
Right.
That's not anything else. So there's cost share agreements with the St. Johns River Water Management District. You have the BRIC grant through FEMA. I'm thinking of grants that are available to you that would be a valuable approach. And the Land and Water Conservation Act funding, which is a maximum of $450,000. There's a wealth of information out there regarding what would add value to this community. And it basically, you can double your CIP by looking for additional funding to offset your cost, or you can just add a lot more value to an existing project by seeking grant funding options. So, our firm has done regional master plans, stormwater master plans for various municipalities. There's money through FDEP from a water quality standpoint. If you think about the Lake Region area, water quality and quantity is very important. Well, it's also very important to the Water Management District and FDEP when you have an area such as Keystone with one of the highest recharge rates in the state of Florida. Protecting our superficial aquifer and our water quality in the lake area region is very important. So I've thought about, as a citizen of Keystone Heights and living here for 15 years, I've thought a lot about what the city could do from a perspective of improving our infrastructure, our drainage, our capacity, and other things. And I think there's a lot of opportunities that could be achieved. It just takes some discovery, and also it takes the willingness of council in the city to pursue cost match funding, for example, with FDEP and with the Water Management District.
And that's something else that I really value, is that Mr. Richard is a resident of the city of Keystone Heights, and I think it's prudent for us to do business with local folks.
To amplify the grant, your materials on page 14 do indicate that your company has had experience with FDEP locally to the tune of $4.3 million for the wastewater treatment plant. So you do have experience locally. Also, back to Splash Park, Wooten Wonderland, you were able to score $500,000 through a CDBG grant.
Certainly,
So, yeah.
and that funding would apply here just as well.
Yeah.
CDBG funding could be applied. That money was in order to make the facility accessible, ADA accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And so the existing budget was $650,000. And so when you added $500,000 through CDBG funding to focus on ADA accessibility, it vastly improved the project budget, which will make their playground facility a marquee destination playground, as opposed to not taking anything away from it, but just a traditional municipal playground. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir,
Councilman?
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions I can address?
Would your firm be interested in bidding before we waste a lot of time on that?
Yes, sir, of course. The way this was written, at least, it was a request for qualifications. And so it was conveyed, at least in the package, that one firm would be selected. And if there was a discretion between the two firms, that there would be a presentation that would be made. However, from a perspective of, are we willing to bid on projects? I love competition. So yeah, let's let the best person win. However, when I look at the grading sheets, I think it's abundantly clear who scored the best. It's my position.
Thank you. Anybody else?
In order to be fair, does your firm do any kind of grant writing?
We do, and in all transparency, not to the extent that, the RMP just mentioned. So, there's different realms of expertise. Yes, he has a lot of expertise in the, locally procuring grants and everything. We have people who do that. We do the street works that we did. We help with the TPO, getting, introducing people into those things and getting into the grant writing and funding sources. We have people in place that are, in networking and everything like that. But, I can't say that we have an abundance of the grant writing locally again, and that's where I would, if I'm in your seat, I'd nod the head to where you should go, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else that I might be able to answer?
No, I think both firms do not have landscaping, architectural landscaping engineers included in your packet?
We do, yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's important to me because we have the streetscape coming up. All right, so back to council here. If there are no more questions of the engineer applicants, what is the desire of this council at this time? Anyone want to give it a stab?
I would suggest the staff start negotiations with DRMP, but not slam the door on the other entity, and kick around the idea of the retainer.
Is there a
But
motion? Is that a
my-
motion?
My motion would be that, based on the information at hand and the scoring, the DRMP should be selected.
Okay, is there a second to that
second.
motion? Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none,
Who seconded that? I apologize.
Ms.
Mary?
Kelly.
Okay, thank you.
motion passes 5-0. Congratulations, Mr. Richard. Okay. Item B under new business will be the July council meeting. Ms. Rakowski?
Yes, so our council meeting is scheduled for July 5th. July 5th is a recognized holiday for City Hall, as July 4th is on a Sunday. We're asking to move the council meeting to July 12th, which would make the airport council meeting July 13th. It was in the ATPT as July 12th as well.
Yeah, so their meeting is the 13th, ours would be the 12th.
That's correct.
All right. Is everybody on board? Can you make a change in your planners, please? We'll begin with council comments. Down with Mr. Hart. Do you have anything to share with us this evening?
Just that I was grateful that I was able to take part in the Memorial Day service at the airport, at the cemetery. And I do want to personally thank Lynn. I know she worked very hard. You put together the agenda, and I think you personally set up everything for the service. Is that correct? So I'd like to thank you.
Thank
And
you.
also a recommendation that for future setups like this, ask the council to help. I'm sure we would be very willing to do Secondly, we do sponsor, or at least recognize the community band, and we are now in the process of putting together a program starting this fall, and we're going to be working with the band director up there to recruit new band members. But this will reflect well, I think, on the city that we're involved in that. That's all I have.
Ms. Kelly?
I want to thank the AMBEFs and the American Legion for helping out with that day too. And we serve food at both places for people that wanted to come eat. It was all free.
You usually have an open house, isn't that right?
We did.
Right? Mr. Brown? Mr. Brown?
No. Shocker, isn't it?
Can you write the date down, please? We need to memorialize that right there. I don't have many comments. I will thank Vice Mayor Hart and others who stepped in for me while I was away. I'm sure Ms. Lynn did her outstanding, extraordinary job she normally does when it comes to setting those things up. And, you know, it's nice to be able to go away and do what you need to do for your family, knowing that people can step in and take part. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Ms. Rakowski?
So I do have a couple of things I will ask that council email me schedules of availability over the next couple of months as we are walking into budget season. We do have a couple of workshops that need to take place in a couple of special council meetings. So anybody who's going out of town, or if you're not available except for on Fridays, please let me know so I can schedule accordingly. The second thing is that we're in talks with FDOT. The signal at 21 and 100, they had it changed. The timing was changed. However, it's just not quite there yet, and that's understood. So they are still tweaking that. We're hoping that any day now, because I keep hearing, you know, a couple weeks, that the poles will be removed from our right-of-way and that we will be under new lighting with FDOT. The project is wrapping up. We're hoping that they will be able to work very, very hard to get this accomplished by July 4th, July 3rd, and July 4th for our events downtown. They are aware of them. With that being said, we are awaiting delivery for our ossuarium at the cemetery. Our cemetery project is just about closed out. That's going to be the last piece, and then we'll put in our wayfinding system there. I have been in contact with Shear Construction. We will be seeing design for the proposed park plans coming up into the fall, so we can make a decision on which way council would like to go moving forward with that. And I've also had conversations with Clay County. They're drafting the potential interlocal agreement so that we can piggyback off of their additional grant writers that they have funded. And we're still negotiating on what that's going to look like, but right now it's set that we would pay a portion of one of their staff members' time. We would give them the projects that they would go out and seek grants for us, and then help us facilitate the money that we're going to be getting from the ARC funding as well. That should be in place, and we'll have that in front of you for the July meeting.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Mr. Commando, sorry, I forgot.
I usually don't have a report, but actually I was just going to tell you, I have a draft of the petition to intervene in the district litigation.
Oh, excellent.
Just so you know, I anticipate filing that either later tonight or tomorrow.
Later tonight or tomorrow? Okay.
Madam Mayor, I do have one other
Sure,
comment.
certainly.
I apologize. So you did see on Facebook that we did have vandalism that occurred to our railing, and as well as our rails to trails. We've been working with CCSO. However, through our social media platform, Prestige Aluminum Rails did reach out to us and let us know that they are going to replace the damaged railing
Yay.
free of charge.
That's awesome. I did follow up with you with Chief Wagner, but I didn't
Yes.
ask you about the trail piece. Did you send him the video of the beach piece? Do we have video?
We have limited video due to the time of night and then where they were placed, where they were standing. So I will work with him on that. However, being
If you
able to
would, because they
recognize-
have video of other things that are going on in the
understand.
local school district, and we might be able to find some accountability there.
I was glad to see that the trail piece has been replaced. It looks nice.
Yes.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none?